Hello, and welcome to another episode of Content Creators Unite, the show where we discuss all things content creation. So, if you want to learn how to grow your business using your blog, newsletters, ebooks, and more, hey, you're in the right place. I'm your host, John Clements. Our guest for today's episode is Robert Downey. So, Robert is the co founder of Simply Be Found, a platform that empowers small businesses to grow organically through accessible digital marketing tools, including local SEO and AI-powered social media solutions. With a focus on ethical, effective marketing, Rob's mission is to help business owners connect authentically with their communities without the need for costly ad spend. His practical hands-on insights make digital growth achievable for businesses of all sizes. Rob, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, John. I'm so glad to be here and being able to connect with all of your listeners. And with you doing everything you do inside of content, I mean, it's been a world that it's changed a lot, even in the last year. But it still comes down into that natural language and being able to do it. We need content now more than we have ever needed content before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm excited to have this conversation after we kind of did that briefing in the green room before hopping on. I was thinking about, I was like, your world is totally more needed now than it ever has been, which is absolutely awesome. And our worlds kind of combine as far as that goes with how you have AI search coming out, you have voice search out, you have all these different things. I mean, we're moving at a faster speed now than I think we've ever been moving. I compare it to, I'm going to date myself here, when we go back to the 90s. I remember getting excited when the 56K modem came out, and then got really super excited when the cable modems came out. And we were always online, and we weren't paying by the hour or the minute to be on AOL back in the day. And I mean, I'm going to date myself because I worked for AOL. I worked for CompuServe and Prodigy. So I was part of all of that stuff. But content is huge. It's a huge aspect.
So fun fact, Prodigy was the first way that I got online when I was a kid. So when you said Prodigy, man, that brings back memories. So that dated myself too.
And it was, I mean, you had all the news groups to chat, and you were able to get connected. And it was so cool to be able to read news on everything. I remember it was CompuServe that came out with a service called Wow, which was trying to compete with AOL. But I mean, AOL did a great job marketing themselves. They hooked up with Blockbuster, which is one of those things that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And they had the opportunity to buy Netflix. They had the opportunity to kind of go in those different worlds. So, I mean, if you're not keeping up with technology, you're not doing those pieces, you're going to fall behind. And look what happened to them.
Exactly. Yeah. So before we get into all that, though, I definitely want to make sure our listeners get a chance to know a little bit more about you, so they know who's talking at them. So can you share with us just a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into doing what you're doing now?
So I've been doing this stuff since 95. That's when I built my very first website. I worked, like I said, for AOL, Prodigy, all the internet, different providers. I ended up taking time off when the .com crash happened. Ended up going and starting my own businesses and doing a lot of different stuff during that time. Ended up getting back into technology in about 2006 when I started building point of sale systems for a restaurant chain that I was part of. And then the rest was kind of history. In 2008, I sold my part of the chain and ended up going back into having an agency, and social media was kicking off at that point, which was absolutely awesome. And I had multiple different pieces of tools and software and platforms out there for many different years. I've opened multiple different agencies and kept a handful of clients that have traveled between everything with me. I sold off to a venture capital group, worked for the venture capital group for a few years, and learned a ton there, and ended up hopping back into it. And simplyfound.com ended up blooming off of one of my clients with one of my marketing agencies. And I walked in, I asked him it would have been 2020, right before the pandemic happened. I asked him, how are things going? He goes, things are going good. I said, you're being found everywhere. And I asked the question, I said, how are you being found on voice search? And he goes, what the hell's that? And I said, well, voice search. You ask Siri and you pull up. I think it's going to be a new thing. Well, he asked Siri for his business. We're sitting right inside of his business, and he didn't come up. And it bugged the living heck out of him. And he goes, "You're thinking about starting another platform, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I got this itch. I think it's going to be awesome." And he goes, "I want part of it." And Dean and I started it up, and then the pandemic happened, and we didn't even realize the pandemic happened in a lot of ways because we were busy developing out the whole entire voice search piece, and developed out the first phase, the first release of simplybefound.com, which doesn't exist today. It was very related to Google, and you have to go beyond Google in a lot more places. So our platform's actually changed completely, and we released out 5.0, which really dives into that AI search, dives into, ChatGPT, Gemini, and being found there, along with the voice search networks and all the different spots, because it's really changed. If you would have talked to me in 2020, I would have told you, "Hey, I think websites are dying. Yeah, you don't have to blog, you don't have to do any of that." And now that, 4 or 5 years later, I'm saying, "Hey, guess what? You have to go back to doing all that because it's going to matter." It's not just a business card anymore, because if those search engines don't know who you are, you're not going to be found, which is why your content is so important.
Oh, so that's super fascinating, because that's kind of the opposite of what everyone else is saying is, yeah, don't worry, let AI do all the work, whatever. And you're saying, no, that's not the way to do it. So I'm actually curious about this a little bit. When you say, we're like, your business is going to help local businesses, let's say, be found in the AI search results. Like let's assume that I don't even use AI to do searches. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that actually mean?
I have a great story that happened to me over Thanksgiving. We went up to Steamboat to go sledding. I've lived in Colorado my entire life, and I've been skiing one time, and that was back when I was 7 years old. You said that you lived in Colorado, so you probably know where Steamboat and everything is. Mm-hmm. But I was standing inside of a grocery store. I think it's City Market over there, but a Kroger grocery store. And a lady's trying to be able to search to be able to look for a restaurant. And she's looking for a restaurant that has a specific kind of food. I forget what it was, but it needed to be gluten-free. And she was I recognized the voice, and I wasn't sure what it was. And I looked like the biggest ridiculous person, because here I am in all my snow gear. And I'm looking at her, and I'm really just kind of staring, and I'm trying to figure out what the world's she using. And it dawned on me. I've been talking about this forever. It's the first time I've ever seen it in real life. Is someone is using ChatGPT, the voice assistant that's inside of it, to be able to find a restaurant. She asked, "Okay, can you find a restaurant with this type of food that's gluten-free?" Came up with 3 or 4 different results for her. She goes, "Okay, dive into that more. Tell me about which one has been around longer. Which one has the best reviews?" She's having a natural conversation with ChatGPT by voice. It's talking to her. She's talking to it. And it came up with all the restaurants that were near her and helped her pick which one would work well for her, and also what her kind of food her husband was looking for. So she put that into that same search, having this conversation back and forth. And she was doing that by using ChatGPT, which you can, if you use Apple Intelligence, you're going to use ChatGPT at that same time. Gemini has its piece, which is on the Android devices. But when she was having that conversation, it came through everything. And I walked up to her and I was like, "I got to ask you, what are you using? How long have you been using this, and why are you using it?" She goes, "Well, I'm 70 years old. I can't see very well. I can't type on my phone very fast, especially not having these gloves I have on. So I can't type with them on, but I can use my voice." So she was using voice search combined with AI search to be able to pick which restaurant she was going to go to. And the only reason that any of the AI knew that any of that existed for any of the gluten-free spots to pick it out was because of the content. So you in the business world, you have to take your data, which would be content, would be your business information, your business hours, all of that different information, and you got to turn it into advertising. So it used all of those data sets. And if those businesses didn't do that, there might have been the best restaurant out there that was the best spot for her. But if they didn't talk about it, they were never in that search, and she was never being able to found by that.
Oh, just a look behind the curtain. We're recording this in early December 2024, and this is blowing my mind. When this podcast comes out in February, it may be the most commonplace thing of all time. I don't know.
Right. Well, if you watch any of the football games, I don't know if you're a football fan, but
Yeah,
if you watch football, if you watch any football, that's about the only live TV I ever watch. And I watch the Denver Broncos, which I mean, so that's the only time I ever really get to see commercials. And they're talking about Gemini for this. They're talking about Apple Intelligence for this. They're talking about all of this stuff, which is absolutely crazy because this didn't exist a year ago. It didn't exist. It's moving so fast. And business owners really need to know how fast it's moving because it's not like the days where you had the yellow pages and you put your ad inside of there and you were good to go, or you send out your newsletter and all these different pieces that are there. You have to make sure you're now taking that same data and making sure you're registered in the right spots, making sure that you're doing the right social media for it, and that you have natural language on your website and the right schema on your website to be able to tell those algorithms, which is what comes out. It's a bot that comes out, looks at your website, that this is what this information is about, and this is what I do.
Oh, interesting. So when a client or a potential client comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to be on voice search too. I don't know what to do." Like you've kind of laid out a few different things, whether it's a schema and there's, what challenges do these business owners face in implementing those strategies?
A lot of times it comes down to they don't know where to start. They don't have much time. They're not sure where to even begin on it. So at simplybefound.com, when we sat down and we developed this out as we restructured it, because, I mean, we built an entire platform that doesn't even exist today. And on 5.0, we released out a whole new piece. And it was like a lot of our members were like, well, what are you doing? And I said, because the world just changed. How you're being found, how you're stacking the data. Google is dead the way we know it. And that's a very key part. Does that mean Google's not going to be around? No, they'll pivot. They'll be able to get where it needs to. That's why they have Gemini. That's why they have those pieces. But as a business owner, you have to be able to get through that. So you have to be able to figure out how to be able to get yourself registered. You have to figure out how to be able to generate the content and how to be able to get that out there. So in my opinion, and that's why we have the 3 different tools that we have, which may end up changing by the time you release this in February. But you have the registration piece. So that's going to go out to 500 plus networks. That's going to get you registered so those algorithms know you even when
Yeah, can we stop right there for just a second? Because I'm not an overly technical person. I know enough to do what I need to do. When you say get registered, I don't know what that means. So what does that mean?
Do you know what a citation is?
Like if I'm driving and get a ticket? That's the only citation I know. So so I don't know what that means either.
So when you register on the networks, hey, you have a Google business profile.
Yeah.
You can have a Bing Places account.
Okay.
You can have a Yellow Page or YP.com account, which then goes out to Super Pages and also goes out to Dex Knows, which used to be the phone books back in the day. You have Apple Business Connect. You have all these different networks. And what we do is we take your business information and we make sure you're registered on all of those. And if your business information changes, we update that information.
Okay. So you're basically taking the pain out of it for business owners. Yep. They will handle it for you. You don't have to worry about a thing. Just you're going to be set for however many, 500, 1,000, however many there are.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So then you get registered on those, and now you're not going to be on all of them because you have ones that are specific for, doctors' offices and ones that are specific for restaurants. And if you're a service area business, you're not going to be either one of those. So you have your own that are, industry specific. So you have all of that. So think about it from a content aspect. You have you have all your business information. So you have your business name, your business phone number, your business address, which used to be referred to as NAP. Now it's with your website as well. It's a NAPW. So then you have your website information. You have your phone, your business descriptions inside of our system. We collect 3. One's a short, one's a medium, one's a long, because each of those networks have a different length that's required. And then you can list off all your products, your keywords, everything inside of it. That is your registration piece. That's your starting bare minimum piece. That information gets sent out. When you use a network like us, we organically get you there. We're not buying any of those spots. We're not forcing anything. We naturally get you inside of those spots. And we have relationships with those networks to be able to put that information in. So we don't create any accounts or user information. You can still go register direct with them and have access to all of that. So we don't do any of that side. So from a very layman's terms, you just register it, you fill out one form, and boom, your information goes out. You don't have to worry about it until that information changes. Now, you might want to optimize that information. If it's not working, tweak some stuff. That's all part of that piece. Your next piece that we have is we have a social media marketing app. A lot of people have heard of Hootsuite, stuff like that. We did a little bit of a different aspect to that, to where then it ties into your listings piece if you have that with us. But that makes it to where you can do all of your social media, all of your video from one spot. And we brought AI for being able to write that in there, our own version of ChatGPT, to be able to write all of your content and do all of that stuff for the captions. And you can pull your Canva graphics in if you want to, but you can do all of that from that social media app. But the really cool piece, especially when it comes to content, is our AI SEO pixel. So what that's going to do is it's going to go to your website and it's going to build all the right schema on your website. Do you know what schema is by any chance?
I have a vague idea of what it is. It's some code that's behind your website.
It's a code that's behind your website that tells the algorithm, this is what this data point is. Okay. This is this kind of data. So when you build that website, you want to make sure you have that dynamic information, because your website should be constantly changing. So as a content person, that website, people should be coming to you and they should be having their content constantly changing on the site, doing blogs, doing all of that different stuff. So what it's going to do is that AI SEO pixel is going to automatically go out. It's going to handle all of that internal linking piece. It's going to handle all the schema, your title tags, your meta descriptions. It's going to make changes based on what the search history is and what people are actually looking for to help you rank higher inside of that search.
So it's like a dynamic thing.
Yep. Oh, so it takes it to a whole new level, and that can work on any website. We don't do website design. We work with website designers. We work with content people because we don't do any of that side. But we do make changes based on that, and there's a whole SEO team that is behind it, because I don't believe in just letting AI go rogue and start making changes to your site. I've had the AI say that a button should be click here for an amazing offer. Well, no one's ever going to click that. It's going to look spammy. Might look great to the AI. It makes sense to it, but humans going to go, no. So, I mean, you have to have that human aspect there. So that's the only one that we have really that human behind it to make sure those changes are done.
Nice.
But those are the three things that stack up, because you have to make sure you're registered, make sure you're on social media, and make sure that your content is optimized. As a business owner, you should be worrying about blogging. You should be worrying about putting that information out there and being able to talk in a natural language.
Yeah. So actually, I do want to hit on the blogging piece for a second, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm really fascinated by your perspective of 5 years ago, who cares about blogs, but today they're more important than ever. So I know you've spoken to this briefly, but just to get a little more in depth, like what precipitated that change in your belief as far as blogs and their value?
AI search. So if that business didn't talk about it by having the content on their website, that AI would have absolutely no idea that it even existed. So my belief in blogs, especially for small businesses, and I'd like your opinion on this for being a content person, is my belief is when you go out and solve it, and I'm going to pick on the service industry, if you're a garage door repair guy and you need to get a garage door repair, you just went out to a garage door, repaired it for whatever it was. If you recorded a video on that and talked about it, you then would have content. You could then load that to YouTube and you'd have video marketing. You could put that video on social media. You could do all the video stuff. But if you put it on YouTube, you can get a transcription of it. Then you can turn that into a blog or hand it over to someone like you and say, hey, write a blog about this video. Because now you have a real life problem that you solved, and you're going to be able to tell that algorithm, hey, I do this.
Yeah.
That's going to give you social media. That's going to give you everything there.
And so what I agree with you 100%. So the only difference that I have from my perspective, not being an AI expert, is I'm doing the same exact thing for the person reading my content. I want to position myself as an expert who can solve your problem, who can take that worry off your plate. And so it's about, building trust, building authority, building expertise. So what it sounds like is you were basically now with AI able to, in many ways, kind of almost hit two targets with one arrow.
Most definitely. And you can do it in multiple different levels. What I like about doing it and starting with video or starting with talking to the AI, like you can use ChatGPT for voice and talk about what problem you just solved, is there's going to be things that marketers never think of. There's a gate repair company that did one for me a couple of weeks ago, and one that we still do his website. We still do all that. He's been a client of mine for years. But he started talking about mice going in and chewing up the cables inside of the gates. As a marketer, not being in the industry, I would have never thought about that. Well, when you do that content, you provide that over to your content person, or you're using AI to be able to generate that content. However you're doing that, you're talking about a real problem, and you're talking about your ideal customer profile. So when you start talking about that ideal customer that's having that real problem, you're going to open yourself up to things that you never even thought about, because it's normal for you. You repair this stuff all the time, but if the person behind that marketing piece is never thinking about that, they're never going to talk about it, which means when someone does an AI search for you, or they do a voice search, or they do any of that, it's not going to know you even do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. To your point, this is entirely true. Yeah, if I am a contractor and I'm always dealing with mice problems, it is normal to me. But if I'm a homeowner and I got a mouse problem, I don't know what to do. I need to call somebody, so I need to know, right?
And no one ever thinks about mouse. No one ever thinks about mouse problems and gate problems.
No, until you have a mouse and a gate problem, and then it's really important. So to be able to step outside yourself like that is so key, I think, with your marketing, and to think that, like, what skills and knowledge do I have that aren't as commonplace as I think they are?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings it into, I think, with the way marketing has changed, it's about being natural language. You can go out. I mean, I can produce 1,000 blogs in probably 2 hours if I didn't care what it said, didn't fact check anything, by using AI. And that's not what Google's looking for, because that's just a bunch of noise. So you have to be able to compete with all the noise that's happening out there, have good quality content, and be able to talk about real problems and what your customer's looking for, not just toot your own horn every 5 seconds about how great you are and selling and advertising, but going to kind of that approach of like a Donald Miller of Story Brand, or which took things from Dale Carnegie back in the day and it's just kind of twisted it. But you have to tell your story, because if you don't tell that story, you're not going to stand out. And that's how you're going to be able to compete against all this different AI stuff, but yet be able to have good quality content so AI can find you and know what it is you do. And what problems
exactly.
you solve.
Yeah, I agree with that approach wholeheartedly. And like you said, like one of the things that an AI can't do is be human. They can't tell a story because it doesn't have experiences. And so to be able to bring your story in, even if AI helps you along the way to create some of the stuff. But yeah, that is a differentiator for sure. I think it's only going to get more so.
It is, because I mean, the AI is only going to just keep regurgitating everything over and over again. But if you look at the power of story, it really regurgitates itself anyway. I mean, everything Disney came up with, there was a story, usually some really wicked and scary stories that were then made into really fun kids movies.
Yeah.
I mean, so I mean, it's one of those things to where everything kind of keeps doing itself, but you have to be able to break through that. You have to break through that noise, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, exactly. So real quick, last question related to content. So we've spoken around this question, but I really just want to be direct and say, in this new landscape we have, how would you actually measure the success of a piece of content?
That's a really hard question. So if the AI comes and it scrapes it, let's say that it puts it out inside of Siri and they start talking about your business because you solved some problem, And this is where a lot of business owners get really super hung up, is we've been used to going to Google Analytics and going to these places and knowing, hey, this is where someone found me. And our technology is moving so fast that it's not keeping up. There's no reports on voice search. There's no reports really on AI search. The only ones that are out there for AI is if they actually did it instead of ChatGPT or Gemini Direct and they clicked on a link. And then there's a referrer network that sometimes comes across, depends on security settings and all that stuff, but it'll come across and it'll show up inside of Google Analytics, which I'm seeing more of. It's asking customers, how did you find me? It's no different than how we used to take and get our businesses inside of the yellow pages and had a coupon that was specific for this yellow page, but different one for this one. And then Velpac had this other coupon, and we tracked those coupons back in the day. You got to ask them, how did you hear about me? And they might not go through. And I think this is going to be really interesting when it comes to content writers like yourself, is they might not read your whole entire piece of content. So when that average user comes and hits a website, they might only spend 3 seconds on it, but the search term they used that made that blog come up or that piece of content come up or whatever it might be inside a voice, it might be an AI search, might be an actual Google or Bing search, but it came up, it got them to the website because the algorithm read it and knows what it is it says and said, hey, this is going to be a good article for this person based on what they're looking for.
Nice. So yeah, definitely sounds we're on the bleeding edge of all of this stuff and still trying to figure it out. But it sounds to me like, again, at the end of the day, exposure. We're looking to get more eyeballs, however that looks.
More eyeballs, more people looking at you. And I mean, marketing has always been really hard to be able to tell how somebody found you, because I mean, I use this example all the time. If we're going to go blow our nose, we're going to say we went and picked up a Kleenex, but that might have been a great value Kleenex. It wasn't really Kleenex, but we're going to call it Kleenex. Googling is the same thing. Google came out with their whole entire search term of Googling, and now everybody Googles everything, but they might be using Bing. They have no idea. The average internet user doesn't know the difference between Google, Bing, a browser, a search engine. All they care about is, did that information take me to the right spot? And all of these search companies are going to have to figure out how they're going to sell ad spots to be able to make revenue off of that. And their entire goal is to be able to make the right result come up for that person that does the search, because then they're the trusted place for them to come back and do it again. If Google gave you the wrong information every single day, would you keep going and using it? No, you'd go find a new search engine. And there's been lots of search engines before Google. I mean, we remember AltaVista, Lycos, Yahoo, all of these different places. I mean, there's other places to go grab information. So, and it's about being in the right spot at the right time. It's no different than going fishing.
Yeah, for sure. I remember Ask Jeeves too. That's a very old one. Do you remember that one?
I remember that one.
Yeah. And then also trivia question. Here's for your next trivia question. When you have like a word like Kleenex or Googling, could be any brand, but as you pick the one brand, that's actually called a proprietary eponym. So next time you're at the pub trivia,
there you go.
There you go. I'm not a nerd. So
I think Kleenex got sued for that at one point.
I'm sure they did. There's money behind it that people get sued. So Rob, with just a couple of minutes we have left, I want to actually pivot a little bit, because I want people to get to know you and not just, your business, as important as that is. I want them to know you as well. So I assume that at least some portion of the day or week, you're not working. At least I hope that's true. So when you're not working, what do you like to do?
I spend a lot of time with family. So I spend time with both my girls, and we do a lot of stuff. So it's one of those things to where we try to make the most out of everything. I work from home, so work's always there. Yeah, I mean, I think you do the same thing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's always there. It's always on the top of my mind, but it's about spending time with family. Really, I mean, I love going camping during the summer, and I love fishing, that type of stuff here in Colorado.
Yeah, nice. Yep, we're big campers too, for sure. So, You've had a ton of life experience. I think your LinkedIn bio says you're like a fourth generation entrepreneur. So there's some history there. With everything you've known and experienced, what's a piece of wisdom or a life lesson? Could be work related, could be life related, that you could just share with their audience to help them just be better people.
Take risks. I mean, that's probably my biggest thing I can ever tell anybody. You might not get it right the first time. You might not get it right the second time, but you'll eventually get it right. And it's about believing in yourself and being able to take those risks and being able to take that plunge, because that's what a lot of business owners don't do. And they're not willing to be able to think outside of the box. And I've been doing this for years the same way, and not getting out of that box is why you get blockbusters of the world that don't exist anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So Rob, if people have enjoyed our conversation, which I know they have, they want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they go?
Simplybefound.com. We also have an entire YouTube channel. I talk about a lot of stuff on there as well, so you can find me on YouTube. I talk about all the latest stuff. So when you post this out in February, if this information has changed a little bit, you can always catch up on it over there too.
Awesome. Yep. And I'll make sure that all of those links are in the show notes, so it's easy to get a hold of you. Rob, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate your perspective. It's different than a lot of people, and I think there's value in that. So thanks for being here, man.
Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate it.
You bet. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed our discussion today, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. I go out and I find the most amazing experts I possibly can, people just like Rob, and we have great conversations that are full of valuable information. So be sure to subscribe, like, do all the things you need to do to never miss an episode. And with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the Content Creators Unite podcast.